Okay. Hola a todos. Bienvenidos. Welcome to this month's edition of LaRama, brought to you by the National Association of Latino Healthcare Executives. I'm Dr. Isabel Pacheco, President-elect for NALHE. At NALHE, we're committed to advancing Latino leaders in healthcare through mentorship, professional development, and a strong sense of community. LaRama serves as a platform to spotlight voices shaping the future of our industry, leaders who inspire action, challenge norms, and embody excellence in service to others. As we close out April and look ahead to Mental Health Awareness Month, we're reminded that true leadership includes prioritizing well-being, not just for ourselves, but for our colleagues, teams, and communities. Let this be a time to reflect, recharge, and reaffirm our purpose. Today, we're honored to highlight a leader who exemplifies the values at the heart of our mission. Her journey is a powerful reminder of how resilience, authenticity, and heart-driven leadership can influence real change in healthcare. Dave, I will hand it over to you to get us started tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Pacheco. Thank you very much for thank you for bringing LaRama episode 3 to fruition. So, hi everybody, I'm Dave Ortiz. By day, I'm a proud CEO and administrator of the Crystal Run Ambulatory Surgery Center in Middletown, New York, an affiliate of SCA Health. I'm also the NALHE Tri-State Chapter President and the co-chair of the Ascender program, and proudly the creator of this series, LaRama. Welcome to episode 3. In this interview series, I get to sit down with accomplished Latino healthcare professionals to explore their journeys, challenges, and triumphs. LaRama is intended to be a guide for the aspiring Latino healthcare professional. Branching out like branches extend from a tree, LaRama aims to extend knowledge, inspiration, and mentorship to early career Brown and Black healthcare leaders. Each interview represents a unique branch, showcasing diverse experiences, specialties, and perspectives within the healthcare field. Rooted in heritage, the series celebrates cultural heritage. Participants share how their backgrounds, traditions, and family values have influenced their paths. By embracing their roots, aspiring leaders can find strength, resilience to overcome obstacles. Mentorship and growth. LaRama provides a platform for seasoned leaders to mentor and guide the next generation through their experiences. Aspiring professionals learn from the wisdom and insights shared by successful Latino healthcare executives. Community and inclusivity. Just as a healthy tree supports a living, thriving ecosystem, LaRama fosters a sense of community. Participants discuss inclusivity, equity, and the importance of uplifting one another. And finally, championing authenticity. Like leaves on a branch, each interview brings their unique story. Authenticity is celebrated. Aspiring leaders are encouraged to stay true to themselves even as they navigate professional growth. Our guest in this episode is Daffodil Baez, president of Adventist Healthcare Fort Washington Medical Center located in Maryland. Ms. Baez is also an entrepreneur and a consultant. She is the founder and CEO of Fortress Therapeutics, a company focused on herbal remedies targeting specific health challenges. Ms. Baez provides consulting services for companies seeking to improve cultural sensitivity and connect with Latino healthcare consumers and streamline their outpatient operations or launch virtual practices. Daffodil received her bachelor's degree at Rice University before pursuing her master's in public health at Columbia University. She began a career as a financial analyst for a commercial health insurance payer before transitioning to practice management. After completing her master's in business administration at Arizona State University, she moved into an executive role for an integrated healthcare provider in Phoenix, Arizona, focusing on combining medical primary care with behavioral health care to the underserved communities. After returning to Texas, Ms. Baez directed the launch of the joint venture regional multi-specialty campus for the largest academic medical center in North Texas. In 2020, Ms. Baez was inducted as a fellow of the American College of Healthcare Executives, and after accepting a role to lead the faculty medical group at Howard University, a world-renowned HBCU, she transitioned to the regional area of Washington, D.C., where she now serves as president for the Adventist Healthcare Fort Washington Medical Center. Daffodil Baez, come to the stage.
Saludos, mi gente. It's so good to see you. Un placer estar aquí con ustedes. How are you, my friend?
How are you? It's been a
Doing
long
great.
time coming, my friend.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to have this conversation. The LaRama program is such a beautiful example of how we can pour into each other and grow together. So I am thrilled and honored, honestly, to be a part of this conversation.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. It's an honor to have you. This is our third episode, and I met you back at NALHE's Summit last year.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew then that I wanted you to be on this platform. I knew that there's a story that needs to be heard. I think there was a story that needed to be understood, and hopefully people can take away from your experiences and use that. And that's the whole point of LaRama. So I'm going to get into it. So, like I may have told you in advance, we have a series of questions that we've prepared for you. Then we're going to go into an opportunity where we do questions from audience members or people who are joining and watching us live. And then we go into a final stage, if time permits, to rapid fire, which is just a handful of questions just to poke some ideas and get some firsthand thoughts from some of these questions. Okay?
Sounds great.
So I'll start with this. What inspired you to pursue a career in healthcare leadership?
Yeah, it's actually been an interesting journey, Dave. I originally, we grow up, we're aspirational, we're inspired by our families. I'm first generation here in the US. Mi familia es de la República Dominicana. So being the Plátano Power, so being the first generation here, my grandparents, my parents, my aunties sacrificed a lot. To come here from the DR. And they did so, right, not only for the promise of what was available here in the United States in terms of freedom, in particular political freedom, but also because they understood that your efforts here, right, allow you to grow and to reach heights that you might not be able to reach back home. And so we always grew up with that value of giving back. And so I wanted to make the world a better place. But originally, I thought that, I was going to be a surgeon, right? I'd grown up, translating for family members and friends who needed to navigate the American healthcare system. But really, the pivotal event for us, for our family, was when my father was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma when I was in eighth grade. And so that really solidified my trajectory. I'd always been interested in science and whatever, but that really solidified my trajectory to want to direct my efforts towards contributing to the world through the area of healthcare.
It's a powerful story. And I think, our generation, there's many of us, I think, in our space, in our age group, I guess, that really kind of are still first generation. We're the ones that were the translators. We were the ones that were the navigators, and we were the ones that were really trying to navigate through, all the different new challenges that existed, for us and for our family.
Absolutely.
It's it leaves an indelible mark, but it's also something that really kind of helps us inform who we are, right?
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. What leadership qualities do you believe are essential for success in the healthcare industry?
Well, among the first, I would say, even outside of the healthcare industry, one of the most successful qualities of a leader is humility. And the reason why I say that is because you have to be willing to learn continuously, right? And in order to be willing to learn, you have to be humble. So for me, humility is a big essential for success. The second is resilience. So many of our industries, but in particular the healthcare industry right now, faces structural challenges. We are in an age of unprecedented change right now. And so you have to have grit, right, to keep going, to continue to lean into the headwind, if you will, and continue to affect change for the community that you're serving. So resilience is certainly a second characteristic that I would say. And third is the willingness to collaborate, even outside of the industry. We know, for example, that there's a significant amount of influence that is being enforced on our industry at the moment by the tech industry, right? And some might see that as a drawback, right? Or something to be afraid of, or even threatened by potentially. I say, let's look at the opportunity to collaborate instead and reach the hand across the aisle, if you will, and help craft the solutions. Because just like we are the subject matter experts in actual clinical service delivery, there are subject matter experts in other areas, like how to build a good tech platform, right? Or how to scale a model,
Mm.
right? That, we simply don't have the depth of that expertise quite as much within our own industry. And so it behooves us to collaborate across industries, across systems, within the verticals of the healthcare industry itself.
I love the choices of skills that you, or the traits that you mentioned, because some of them are soft skills and some of them may be inherent in some, and
Hmm.
sometimes a challenge for others. But then there are others that are just really kind of, you could drill down and be a master at in mastering
Hmm.
data, right? And I
Yes,
think, that having that kind of triangular approach where you have soft skills, intangible skills, and then data to back it up. It's kind of really powerful.
absolutely.
I want to touch
Absolutely.
on, I want to hold on to this a little bit, because we spoke recently and we had a conversation, kind of broached on these questions, and some of the things that I wrote down kind of really linger, and I wanted to bring it up because it ties into, your life story and who you are. And you talked about empathy, and you mentioned team player,
Mm-hmm.
and you spoke about quantitative data, which is, I mean, it was just really spot on, because those three things are just exactly like that triangle, right? Where each of them are a strong element that hold the whole thing together. And then you
Yes.
also spoke about resilience,
Uh-huh.
stress awareness, and mental health.
Yes.
That's powerful.
Yes. So I'm gonna tease a little further based off of that prior conversation that we had, right? Because the piece about data really cannot be overstated. And
Mm,
here's why I say that. There are many times in which the path forward might be unclear. Okay. And your vision, your scope of view might not give you a clear answer about what you should be doing. It is particularly in those cases where you want to make decisions based on credible information, not based on how you're feeling,
right.
right? Because how you're feeling might be influenced by a social trend at the moment, but as a leader, you will have the responsibility for foresight for your team, right? So you need to be able to look ahead and understand kind of what's around the corner so that you're setting your team up for success, securing the resources that they need, anticipating the challenges or addressing the challenges. And the way that you do that most effectively is when you make data-driven decisions, not personality based decisions, which really is another way of saying bias, right? We want to make unbiased decisions that are truly informed. And then, and particularly as we go into Mental Health Awareness Month, I mean, look, this is not an easy industry,
Mm,
right? Any service industry, by definition, is going to require that you pull out of yourself in order to give to others, right? And so, in order for you to have a well to pull from,
mm,
right, you have to remain balanced yourself. And so, however, whatever your self-care routine or inventory of things is that refill your well,
yeah.
identify what those are for yourself and be diligent and intentional about investing time in yourself. Because if you don't have it to give, you won't be able to make a lasting impact in your community.
Yeah. I think, as a culture, I've experienced that we leave ourselves as last, right?
Hmm.
And we only go when we only go seek help when we're sick, or
Yep.
when we have a symptom. And I think that, life's lessons kind of change your mind state. And either you have the ability to alter it and be informed as a result, or you get swept up in a wave of something else, right? I think
Yep.
it's such an important message, and it's a prevalent message, and it's a consistent message that we put ourselves first, right? And I think and it sounds selfish at times, depending on the context, but I think it's absolutely essential to your point. Because if
Hmm.
you can't take care of yourself, how can you then take care of the patients coming into your space?
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Pretty powerful. This is awesome. Thank you. My next question is, can you share any success stories or memorable moments from your tenure as an executive that you can share with young aspiring leaders in the Latin community? Is there anything that stands out for you that really was a aha moment or a turning point?
I'm going to give you two examples. The first is, so when I was responsible for leading the integrated behavioral health organization, and this was in Phoenix, Arizona.
On
Okay.
feet. Got it.
This was several years prior to the pandemic. Okay. But we were disrupting the market, right? We were being creative about how we got services out to the communities.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that we did is that we launched a telepsychiatry program. Okay. And so I lived and I saw the value of virtual services long before the pandemic. And I knew that they had a tangible, concrete benefit to the community. All right. Now, fast forward. I'm responsible for this new joint venture campus north of Dallas, Texas. Okay. And the question came up, hey, Daffodil, how do you want to train your team? Because it was a brand new team, brand new campus from scratch. And we needed to know, what is it that we're going to put into the building? How are we going to configure the services that we're going to have there? And I said, okay, all the normal things, exam tables, and specialty equipment and all that stuff. And I said, but also, we need to make sure that our entire team is trained and all of our equipment is configured for virtual services. And they said to me, that's really not necessary. No one else in the system is doing this, right? Like, you really don't need to worry about that. And I said, no, I've seen the value of this. I've seen how it can change patients' lives because they are willing to access services that they would not have otherwise accessed. Let's go ahead and do it, even if it takes extra unnecessary effort. Okay. Now, put it in context. That campus launched T-minus 4 months to a worldwide pandemic being declared. Okay.
Wow.
And so what happened is
Yeah,
that
almost
when
at
the
the start.
pandemic, there you go. We were ready to pivot immediately. In 48 hours, we had done what, like, it took other people weeks and weeks and weeks to accomplish because we'd done that groundwork. And how did we know that? Again, that was a data-driven decision where we knew where the trends were going, right? And even though not all of the structural support in terms of like payment models and everything were in place, we knew that it was coming. And so we made preparations and held ourselves to a higher standard ahead of time, right?
Yeah.
You will never fail. You will never fail if you set excellence as the standard to which you hold yourself and your team, right? There will be people who will tell you that you are making unnecessary effort. That's okay. Because when you are needed, when the community needs someone to really step up and lead and shine, you will be ready for that. So that's one story, right? Another story, and one that's still, I do this now everywhere I go, is the setting up of pipeline programs, right? So talent programs. So everywhere I go now, I started this off by just really, it was a conversation around, we need more medical assistants, right?
Right.
How do we ensure that talent pipeline? So I developed a relationship with an MA training program, right? We put together some specifics. I joined the board, right? Because you also have to be willing to invest in the curriculum and the guidance of those students, right? And we were able to drastically reduce the effort and the expense that it took to hire and maintain high quality medical assistants. So now everywhere I go, I set up some type of a pipeline or residency program, whether it's for frontline clinical staff, whether it's for administrative residents at the master's level, who I have seen move into business manager roles after completing school. Like, I'm so proud of them. And every time I run into one of these folks, it feeds my soul, right? It refills that well, because you know that the effort that you made is living on, multiplied, right? Through others.
That's fantastic. So you immediately start to build an artery based on the thing that you feel you
Yep.
need the most in that
Yes,
particular space.
absolutely.
That's awesome. Wow. Wow. Okay. So let's go to the next one. It's as a leader in healthcare, what challenges have you faced and how did you overcome them? And I'm a little ambivalent about this question. I think we kind of talked a little bit about this. As a woman leader, how would you
Mhm.
categorize some of the experiences? Have they impacted it? Has it amplified it? Has it been part of your superpower?
Yeah. So I think that as melanated leaders, okay, as many of us are immigrant leaders, certainly as half of us, half of the population are females, right? So as some of us are female leaders, um, we are actually the best people who are best suited to be in leadership positions. Why? Because we have had to actively problem solve, creatively find solutions, find a way to collaborate with people who might not have considered collaborating with you, to whom you might have been invisible at first, but you made yourself visible, right? Through your efforts and the strength of your argument, right? And so when you've had to do that, you've actually been polishing those skills for
All your
leadership
life,
your entire life.
as like you
Your
said,
whole
as a
life.
translator, as a navigator, as
Yes,
you've had to think of innovative ways to help your family through.
absolutely. Absolutely. And the more people that you have, for whom you are responsible. And that's
Mm,
the thing, that's how I view leadership. I don't view it as, credit or status or whatever other frills might be attached to that. I actually view it as an expansion of the people for whom I am responsible. Now, that might be because my brain is wired as an oldest child, right? So I was responsible for my siblings,
Okay.
right? And so I tend to be very protective of my team, right? Like I want them to succeed, and so I view them as more than just like employees, right? Or staff. They are people that I actively want to succeed, because the thing is that if your team succeeds, you succeed
Yeah.
every
Yeah.
single time.
Yeah. I think I always look to see, is there someone that could replace me, right?
Hmm.
And that thought could take a negative connotation if you have that innate in you, right? But I think the idea is to always find someone, like for the person who I report up to, right? My goal is to make that individual successful enough by my efforts so that he could be promoted,
Hmm.
and that's always been a concept that really has kind of worked for me. And it
Hmm.
sounds like that's exactly what you do for your team. It's like you make it
Yes.
available so that they could succeed underneath.
It's some of my proudest moments are when people actually, it's not fun when you lose a team member that you really value,
Mm,
but it's such a bittersweet moment because you're so proud of them because they've
mm,
outgrown. Sometimes they outgrow the opportunity that you have for them at the moment, but you know that they're going out there, right? And they're shining on their own. They're like little birds, they've taken flight. Um, and so those are some of the proudest moments for me so far in my career.
that's
I
awesome.
will though, I do, Dave, want to acknowledge, you know, it's not all like fun and inspiration, okay? Like there is absolutely specific challenges that face women and that face people of color as they are navigating this industry. And I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge that, right?
Yeah,
So all of the advice that you've heard in the past, let me just, double click that and say, yes, you need to learn how to negotiate. You need to find a sponsor and a mentor, and those are typically different people,
yeah,
right? You need to understand that there are many systems for which your success is threatening, frankly, because it challenges the norm.
yeah,
Okay. You need to understand that structurally, most places, right, do not have pathways that are intended to elevate you and promote you. And that is why programs like LaRama and organizations like NALHE are so important, right? Because you need to be able to find, not only the experts who have, or the colleagues who have the expertise, right, in that same industry. But you need those voices and you need someone to practice with, right, and to allow you to polish, your own personal branding and messaging so that you are ready, right? Prepare yourself for success.
Yeah, we just had an event recently for the tri-state, and it was our first event in New
Mm-hmm.
Jersey this year. And it was really exciting. It was a Latino-owned Dominican and Italian fusion restaurant, and it had all of the makings of being great food and a great vibe, and it did not disappoint. And then one of the things that I think I remember sharing was one of my favorite verses, like iron sharpeneth iron. And I think you're touching on
Mm-hmm.
that. It's like the whole concept of NALHE is really being able to sharpen yourself, sharpen your skills, become a better version of yourself, and
Mm-hmm.
become that executive that you aspire to be because of the people that you are surrounded by, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're
Mm-hmm.
all, everybody's hungry, everybody's aspiring to succeed. And that's,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and there's a generosity to that process where you share with each other, right? And then you become this this Rolodex of ideas and concepts and hunger and aspirations that really kind of make yourself a completely different kind of package for anyone who's paying attention.
Absolutely.
That's pretty
Absolutely.
powerful. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel that the healthcare industry is doing enough to promote changes and inclusivity in the C-suite?
No, but let's be real. When has it ever? Right?
Mic drop. And that's the end of our show. No, but
And so what do we do? Right? What do we do? I have a conversation, I have a recurring conversation with a very close friend of mine, and we talk about creating opportunity for yourself, right? Um, Again, the healthcare industry as an industry is facing significant challenges right now, right? It's like when you're flying in an airplane and you hit turbulence. This is like we are in significant turbulence. You need to buckle up your seatbelt. This is
yeah,
not the time, to be roaming the aisles. Um, and so the thing is that we cannot wait for others to create opportunity for us. We cannot expect that a system, right, a large, amorphous, multifaceted, highly complex industry is going to turn on a dime to say, oh, let's like set all these other things aside and make sure that you guys are taken care of. And that might sound like pretty cynical, but all I'm saying is let's be realistic, right?
yeah,
This is why we're having these conversations. Like, who is the healthcare industry? Who's that?
yeah.
You know who that is?
I can't draw them if I
It's
could.
me. It's
It's
me.
it's everyone.
It's me. It's you. It's
Yeah.
the folks on this call. And so when we ask each other the question, do you feel that the industry is doing enough to promote diversity and inclusion? Let's hold up a mirror and say, okay, what are we doing to promote diversity and inclusion at a very individual level?
Yeah. You said it earlier, it's like putting your head down when you're up against a headwind.
Hmm.
And it's any challenge. And this phase or this cycle that we live in right now, we have a different set of challenges. A
Hmm.
couple of years from now, we'll have a completely different. Prior
That's
to
right.
this, we had COVID.
That's right.
So there's always something that we need to adapt to and change,
Right.
So thank you. I think you kind of tied in your original statements. And I love the fact that, you have to show grit, because you got to stay there. You got to
Most
be
definitely.
resilient.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So another one I have for you is what steps are you taking? No. What are your thoughts of the future for healthcare in general, and just also Latinos who aspire to be leaders in the healthcare field?
Um, okay. So thoughts on the future. So a little bit of futurescaping.
Yeah.
The first is that number one, the mix of services that we currently deploy, right? are going to have to be refined for the silver tsunami that is already here. Okay. So the aging of America, the graying of America, right, is going to require additional adjustments in the portfolio of services that we provide, and therefore the training that we and the skills, right, that we have to put our teams through, and put ourselves through to make sure that we are ready to encounter those challenges. Okay.
Hmm.
Number two. So first is the demographic changes. Number two is the actual technology, the impact of technology on our industry. It is not going away.
Hmm.
And the best way for you to protect yourself, in particular, I hear people like, oh, aren't you concerned about AI? You know, don't you think that it could like reduce jobs and whatever? It's like, frankly, we couldn't get good, well-designed, equitable AI solutions fast enough, okay? Because the educational programs that we have right now, when you think about the number of physicians, nurses, and other clinicians that are coming out of academic systems, not nearly enough to meet the demand. They need help. They need clinical tools that are going to help them, right? When we talk about being a leader who is able to make data-driven decisions, right? And understanding that you have more and more data coming out of the EMR and other platforms, right, that are intended as our way of delivering these healthcare services, you have to be able to speak that language and understand the output that's coming from those platforms. So the influence of tech is here to stay, and your most protective strategy is to become good at it. Right?
Yeah.
Because then you join the conversation and you can actually help to craft the solution instead of just being a recipient of whatever somebody else designs for you. That makes sense?
Perfect. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's really perfect. I think that from a time perspective, I wanted to turn it around a little bit and
Sure.
open it up to see if there's anybody in the that's watching us, that's listening to us, if they have any questions that they may want to share and ask you. I will share some of the feedback I'm reading here. Amen. I love that. So true. Preach. Servant leadership at its finest. Latinos only make up 4% in hospital C-suite across the U.S. I think, and I think, Christina, I think it's even less for female Latinas as well. I had this conversation with Debbie Visconti. I think the number was under 2%. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Mira, look at that. I'm finally a 1%er. Maybe there's hope.
Welcome. Right.
I'm kidding.
Let me see. Does anybody have any questions they'd like to share with?
While we wait, can we talk a little bit more about diversity, Dave?
Let's do that. You know, it's such a, I don't know, it's the name, the word now has a different, you know, kind of feeling nowadays.
You know what I think is funny about this whole conversation on diversity is that anybody who has studied strategy, right? In particular, military strategy or political strategy, has been taught the principle that a variety of perspectives are actually a tactical advantage. What does that mean? Okay, we go back to the Roman Empire, right? What is one of the reasons why the Roman Empire was so successful, why the Roman army in particular was so successful, right? As they went and they dominated like all of these other cultures. In part, it was because not only did they have foot soldiers, right? But they also had archers. The foot soldiers had learned to work together with the archers to create, you know, like these shields, right? And you've seen this in like some movies, recreations of some of these, right? They create these shields, and so they can move as a unit and they can cover, you know, each other. And so the foot soldiers, the infantry would cover up the archers when there was like returning fire, what have you, right? But that was a whole new set of tactics that had not been utilized in warfare previously. In addition to that, they had a cavalry, right?
Yeah.
So now you have on foot, now you have air weapons, right? Airbound weapons. Now you have much faster, the ability to move, right? Through a territory much more quickly, right? Then they added in the Navy, All right. And before you know it, you have all of these different tactics that a general could use
Mm.
to dominate any particular territory. For us to say that diversity, I'm not even going to state it in the negative. I'm only going to state it in the positive. Diversity is a strategic advantage. And to choose not to be diverse is short-sighted.
Yeah.
Right? Even if you're only looking at it black and white from business perspective, not the whole bias, right? And the value of people and et cetera. Just strictly black and white P&L numbers, right? There have been multiple studies of corporations that are more diverse versus corporations that are less diverse, and the numbers don't lie.
Yeah.
So if you have more insights, you will develop better plans. And so I think that, sometimes we think of diversity as only being what we can see on the outside, right? We think about it as the melanation degree of our skin, right? Or the shape of our eyes, or whether or not we present as male or female. But I would encourage us all to remind ourselves to keep the definition of diversity broad, right? In terms of how we think, how we approach problem solvings, what our backgrounds are, right? What our industries were,
Yeah.
right? The more you have in your toolkit, the more comprehensive and effective and insightful a plan you will be able to craft as a leader.
Totally. I love that. And I'm glad you made the analogy also from a strategic and from using traditional warfare. I mean, it's just a very plain and clear example of why diversity makes a lot of sense here, now, in the past, and in the future.
Absolutely.
I've got 3 questions.
All right.
Dorian asked, when you said we cannot wait for others to create opportunities for us, it really resonated. It reminded me that the agency and self-advocacy are critical, especially in environments where representation is limited. How have you seen that mindset shift careers or open doors, not just for yourself, but for others you might mentor?
Yes. So one of the most powerful ways that I have seen this work is where someone notices a problem, okay, and raises their hand to attempt to fix it. So they volunteer to take it on. It's not something that was given to them. It wasn't tasked to them. Sometimes it wasn't even, like a strategic priority or what have you for the organization that they're in. But I've seen this work multiple times, right? In which someone says, that's an interesting issue. I think I have a solution, right? And so they then take that and they go and they approach a senior leader. They secure an executive sponsor, okay? And that's where that sponsorship piece is so important.
Yeah.
They put together a team or an analysis or whatever it is, right? So you have to invest the sweat equity, all right? But what happens is that then opens the door for them to be in front of people, meaning stakeholders or decision makers that they would not previously have had entree to. And I have seen that turn into opportunities of promotion, opportunities of different roles for multiple people in my circle.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I have one other. How has mentorship helped shape your leadership approach?
Oh, certainly. So I
Thank you,
have
Neil.
several mentors. Yes, thank you, Naomi. Great question. Um, I have several mentors whom I still depend on, right? Because what's fun when you find a mentor who's also a leader is that like they're also evolving. No one remains static. And so sometimes the relationships change just a little because now it's almost more like we're colleagues as opposed to like student and teacher, you know what I mean? But I have one of my favorite mentors is a senior white male. And he has given me fantastic advice in the past on how to navigate certain situations, right? I have another mentor who is another female leader who has worked in several different spaces in the healthcare industry. I have another mentor who's in the nonprofit space, but the insights from him have been helpful when it comes to building community relationships. right? And so the more people that you have, again, it's about those little tidbits, right? You take all of the different little jewels that people are willing to offer you. And when you then are faced with a situation, you say, okay, I need to take stock of all of the resources that I have available as I draw up my plan for
Right.
how to address this situation. And so the fact that I have input, right, and perspective from multiple different sources directly informs the type of plan that I put together for whatever that challenge might be.
Yeah. To your original analogy, it's like you have multiple people contributing to your well, right?
Absolutely.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Naomi. I want to say there's a quote from quoting Haran Mitchell. Groupthink is the killer of innovation. Diversity is the energizer. I just wanted to point that out. I think that was a really good one.
Groupthink is
Christina
the
also
killer of
clarified, I
innovation.
believe, 1.8% of Latino women are in the C-suite.
Oh,
So
thank you for quantifying that.
yeah, so it's not grown much from when I first identified it a couple of years ago. But another person, LinkedIn user, hi Daffodil, eres un orgullo hispano. Given the demands of your executive role in healthcare, how do you approach maintaining a work-life balance and the strategies that have worked well for you? This is an alley-oop because I know that you are a strong proponent of some activities, and I know you're going to share them now.
I am. The first, look, if there's anything that I've learned is that like it's never going to be 50-50. Okay. So like give yourself the grace to find the balance that works for you. All
Hmm.
right. This is a very personal decision. For me, what works is I decompress outdoors. So typically on the weekends, you will find me hiking somewhere, or I'll be on my bike, or I'll be doing something outside, especially now that the weather is good. I like to travel. Okay, I'm reading. I'm reading pretty constantly or listening, to an audiobook or something along those lines. I love massage, right? You got to do all of those things. You must incorporate, please, for the love of God, incorporate physical activity. And I say that because I don't know if any of you have read the book or listened to the book, The Body Keeps the Score. Okay. But again, you have to be able to pour out of you, right?
Hmm.
And what that means, this is already a stressful industry because you have so many demands on your time and your emotional energy, your cognitive load. And so you have to be willing to reinvest back in yourself, even if you only view it strictly as like an input output equation. You got to have inputs so that you can have output.
Perfect. I'm going to leave with this last question before we go into the rapid fire section. So Christina M. Sanchez asks, what would you do today? What would the you today tell the 19-year-old you or a 19-year-old version of you?
What would the me of today
Tell
tell
the
the
19-year-old version.
19-year-old version of me? Start your business earlier. Okay. We need equity in our own in our own period. Um, the second I would say is you don't have to be just one thing. There's this concept of a portfolio life where you get to express the different portions of your personality and your skills, right? And not all of it has to be crammed into your job or subservient to that job, right? If if I had the opportunity to recraft my direction, I
Mhm.
would do I would do a little bit more of the things that I find um uh joyful, right?
Yeah,
And creative, right? As opposed to being so focused on the goal of professional success, right? Because the
got it.
thing is that this industry is always going to be here. they are always going to need you, right?
Yeah.
But your KPI should be happiness.
It's almost like enjoy the journey, right? Because the destination is just, a one point on the horizon.
Hmm.
That's powerful.
And we all end up in the same destination, Dave. So we need to enjoy the journey.
Yeah. My director behind the scenes just gave me a time check, so we're gonna switch gears and do our
Time check.
rapid
Got
fire.
it.
These will be
All
a
right, let's do it.
handful. How would you define your leadership style in one word or a phrase?
Collaborative.
Which leadership book or thinker has influenced you the most?
I've read a lot of books, but one of my favorites is Good to Great.
Good to great. Okay. Write these down, people. What is the one trait that you think is critical in a leader?
Humility.
What is the one word you would use to define you?
Tenacious.
Tenacious? Okay. I would have never guessed.
Nah.
What is the one word people would use to define you?
Energetic.
Okay. And now, last one. If you had a chance to host a TED Talk, what would you talk about?
The power of we.
When is that gonna air?
When I have you to help me produce it.
We'll work on that next.
All right, that's the next project.
Daffodil, I cannot begin to thank you for sharing your journey. I want to just really appreciate it. Just knew building up to this that this would be a really great conversation. I think I was having a conversation with Raquel recently, and it's just like, it's just going to be two people having a conversation, and hopefully it'll be a benefit to some people or someone who's listening or watching. So I really hope that it resonated that way. I think that it's always a blessing to have an opportunity to share with like-minded individuals like yourself. And I think that it was important for you to have the platform to really talk about some of the things that are important to you. So thank you for blessing us from being here.
Thank you so much. Let's take care of each other, y'all. They're tough times, but we will get through it together. So, bring somebody up. It's worth it.
Yeah. Couple of special thank yous are Lori behind the scenes. Lori Thibodeau is our director extraordinaire. Thank you for making this effortless and texting me in the private chat. It's like, speak louder. I appreciate all the guidance. Thank you so much. I also want to thank Marcos and Orlando, some of our leaders in NALHE. They're the ones who really kind of planted the seed and gave them the idea that no idea was outrageous. So think of something that you think that might be of value and then come back. And I did that, and that's how we have LaRama. So if it wasn't for them inspiring me to try to think outside the box or think about something that I think would be of value, we wouldn't be here. So for them, I think I want to also thank the NALHE Tri-State team just for creating the space and fostering innovation on our end and just helping us, move this along and making a tri-state idea into a national impact. So I want to thank everybody there. I'm going to end up now thanking you once again and asking Dr. Pacheco to close us out.
Okay, Daffodil, I gotta say, you're truly inspiring. You inspired me. Thank you for being with us tonight. And thank you all for joining us on this edition of LaRama. At NALHE, we believe that leadership is a community effort, and LaRama is one of the many ways we uplift our network, amplify diverse voices, and stay rooted in our values of excellence, advocacy, and service. And as we enter Mental Health Awareness Month, let's carry forward the message that caring for our well-being, mental, emotional, and professional, is a vital part of sustainable leadership. And we're also excited to invite you to the NALHE Annual Leadership Summit, which will take place from September 17th to the 19th in beautiful San Antonio, Texas at the Westin Riverwalk. Hotel rooms with special NALHE discounts are now available for reservations, so stay tuned for when registration opens. As we continue working to build a healthcare system that reflects the cultural richness, lived experiences, and unique perspectives of the communities we serve, we reaffirm our commitment to equitable leadership, inclusive innovation, and opportunity for all, values that transcend healthcare and focus on people. Whether you're a seasoned executive or just beginning your leadership journey, your presence, your story, and your impact matter. Together, we're shaping the future of healthcare. And on behalf of NALHE, thank you for being a part of LaRama. Juntos somos más fuertes. Together, we are stronger. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.